Today we are visiting Kingswood Prep School in Bath. We're particularly pleased to be at Kingswood, a school that personifies what Learnus is all about, applying research in psychology and neuroscience to improve the educational life chances of young people. We're here to observe the success they're achieving with their Science of Learning programme. The Science of Learning programme at Kingswood incorporates 3 strands: educational neuroscience, educational research and cognitive psychology. Content is informed by research findings and further supported by impact now being reported by teachers and school leaders. We are keen to learn more about how they embed their Science of Learning programme and how the children are responding. Rebecca, thank you very much for inviting us here to Kingswood School. It's lovely to be here, and I'm looking forward to being shown around.
It's great to have you.
Can you start, if it's okay, by just giving us a brief insight into your journey into science teaching, neuroscience in particular?
Yeah. Well, I started teaching in 2004 in a great school in Oxford, and then another school in London. And I noticed as an early careers teacher, that some teachers seem to have that magical skill that drew everybody in. They were absolutely brilliant, but it wasn't anything that we'd been taught about in teacher training. Nobody had actually told us how a brain learns, how to be incredibly engaging, how to bring it to life. It was more about policy, curriculums, and so on. So I was very lucky. I got the chance to do a part-time master's where I looked at educational research and how cultural relativism acts in schools and how it informs teachers' decisions. And then I progressed into doing a PhD at UCL, looking at the practical application of educational neuroscience.
Exciting. So what sort of things were you looking at in terms of practical application?
Well, I was taking stuff that people had used in labs, and they'd been hugely successful in labs, and people were just starting to use them in small classroom settings. And I wanted to know that, can you take something that works in a lab or a research setting and apply it in a real life classroom that has multiple variables going on all the time, many of which you have no control over as a teacher. Children are affected by stuff that's happened at home before they've even come in through the door, by stuff that happens at break time, friendship problems, lack of sleep, whatever. Do these activities actually help the children's learning? So
go on then. You're going to have to give us some ideas. What are you actually doing? We're at Kingswood School now, so what are you actually doing? I think you sort of talk about maybe 7 principles. There are 7 ideas.
Yeah, we actually had 20 ideas we brought in. Yeah, starting off with the environment. So the most important place to begin is the environment, the room the children walk into each morning. And we thought that we'd get the greatest staff involvement as well, and parental involvement, if people could physically see what a classroom that's geared towards learning really looks like, that's aligned with how the human brain learns, the architecture of learning. So we made them very clear, very calm. We got rid of the washing lines, the cluttered walls.
And that's to do with attention?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah. And if you're sitting in a very cluttered room, one of the children said to me, it's like being shouted at visually all the time. And we know as well that children find it very difficult to learn in highly visual settings. In fact, there was a piece of research at Durham University that said that a better predictor of learning outcome or recall, better than age, verbal, non-verbal abilities, was actually the amount of clutter on the walls. So the very first step we decided was
So are we talking about pre-prep? Because you go from 9 months, I believe, all the way through to 18.
Right the way through.
Are you doing similar things, pre-prep, prep and senior school?
Well, it's led by the teachers. So we began the whole process with a big inset in the September of last academic year, where I talked to all 175 odd staff.
Wow. And
we laid out ideas for your environment, ideas for the pedagogy, ideas for revision and memory, how important understanding the complexity of the brain is. I mean, learning is an incredibly complex thing. It's the interplay of 8 different systems, all of whom working together brings out this magical thing called learning. And most of the time we have no appreciation of actually what's going on. So my very first step actually was to get teachers to appreciate that what we do in the classroom, what the children are doing in the classroom, is quite extraordinary. And how can we make that life easier for them? How can we make it much easier for them to sit there, to focus? How can they feel more comfortable? How can they feel ready to learn? And how can they know about their own brains?
You don't like too many distractions, not too much clutter. Is it clutter that gets... Why does clutter get in your way?
Well, I personally tend to look at the clutter
Oh, I see.
rather than focusing on the lesson. I'm talking about the way your brain learns. So, like the teachers, if the lesson is fun, then it's easier for you to learn. If you're bored or you're like a bit stressed and that, it's harder to learn because you're thinking about that.
Are you okay with the calm side of it, or does it need to be quite exciting all the time?
The calmer side is good.
Well, it needs to be light, so there needs to be lots of natural light because it helps us focus, and it needs to be quiet and calm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you think makes a good teacher?
Well, teachers who don't tell you off when you fidget, teachers who understand that you can't sit through 3 hours and do a massive essay, teachers who kind of almost take you as you are. If you do something a bit quirky, they won't be like, sit down, stop being silly. They'll kind of just let you do your own thing.
Who's that?
This is Darwin.
Darwin?
Yeah, he's the school therapy pet.
He's a school therapy pet.
Yeah, it's really helpful to have animals in your environment because their mood and emotions can affect how you learn. So it's a good thing about having a tortoise. They're very calm, so they can calm you down as well.
So what were the most important steps, I suppose? So you changed the environment.
Yep.
You did some CPD around how the brain learns.
Yes.
You, I assume, are going to continue. I note here that a couple of people have some very positive comments about a presentation that you did. Really reassuring, lots of things you've been doing around retrieval practice and space practice, blah, 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 blah. Very, very, very complimentary. These are for the senior school. So
This is the whole school.
Oh, really?
Whole school,
Oh, wow. Do you deliver to the students as well?
Yes, absolutely. They're the key part. So we tell the teachers what's going on, and they get an understanding of it. But then you're putting the pressure on the teachers, and I was quite worried that teachers would then think it's just one more thing to do. We're already very pressured, as you know. So let's lift the onus and give it the heavy lifting to the children. So we trained up various year groups to be learning champions. In the prep school here, we began with year 5. We taught them about how their brains learn. It was lovely seeing the light bulbs going off as they realised, that's why I do that, that's what this means. We talked about the importance of being calm and happy and having an overstimulated amygdala when you feel stressed, worried, concerned.
And they're happy talking about amygdala?
Oh, yeah,
oh
absolutely.
Wow.
No, they will. They'll talk to you later, I hope.
I'm excited.
And if it's understimulated, you're bored, you've checked out, you've drifted off, it's not ideal. So then we said to the children, how can you help your teachers make it just the perfect environment? And the first thing they said was reduce distractions. We did a big baseline test, a survey of the things that they found most affected their learning negatively and positively. And the problem for them was distractors, so that fed nicely into the environment. So we calm the environments down. This is a really great example.
It's a very good example. You've got a few things on the table here as well,
we
haven't
have.
you? And I'm sitting on a nice comfy cushion.
Yep, soft cushions. You wouldn't want to sit all day in a hard chair.
No, I
We wouldn't
wouldn't.
expect
No,
adults
no.
to, so why
It's a
would we
very good
expect children
idea. And you've got here, what's this? This is a CO2 monitor.
Yeah,
of some sort.
carbon dioxide monitors. So the children are in charge of these. We
Wow.
plug them in and the alarm goes off when it gets to 1,000 parts per million, which is when cognitive decline is supposedly tails off a little bit. And you often don't feel it as a teacher because you're in the room with the children, and it's only when you leave and then come back in you think, it's a bit foggy in here. So when the alarm goes off, the carbon dioxide monitor will open the window. So again, the teacher's not having to manage that.
And temperature?
Temperature, we have lots of ventilation. The temperature's fine. If it's a bit warm, they'll open the doors as well. We got the friends of Kingswood Prep School to buy every classroom a whole load of plants.
I love the plants. You've got plants everywhere. It's fantastic.
Well, they feel nice.
They do.
They feel nice. They increase the amount of oxygen. Clean
Do you
the
have
air.
these in the pre-prep school and the senior school? Is there something similar going on there? Or is it
I've lent
just...
these to a few departments. I know the English department have a couple.
Oh, brilliant.
Learning support department do. I'm not sure exactly how many are around the school.
And plants everywhere?
Plants, yes, plants everywhere. All the classrooms who have got Year 5 learning champions in have a brain to remind them.
So
about their brain.
you're part of the Learnus organisation.
Yes, yeah.
You are literally the bridge because you definitely have an understanding, a very solid understanding of teaching, the pedagogy behind it, and you also have a very good understanding of what's going on in the academic background.
Yes.
From a learner's point of view, we're really keen to see whether or not we can transfer a lot of the ideas that are going on in academia. Can you give us some sort of your own personal view on whether or not it's achievable? You seem to have managed to nail it here in terms of your curriculum.
No, I think it's entirely achievable, absolutely. But the important thing is to make the teachers and the children, who are the actual agents in the learning process, you have to give them control and agency. So you say to the teachers, here are the 20 things you could try. Now, what works in the pre-prep might not work at all in the senior school. The senior school children are more preoccupied and more concerned with, at that stage in their education, of learning, passing exams. So they're going to be perhaps more interested in memory, retrieval practice, space learning. The younger ones, much more about emotional regulation, setting the emotional climate so that the children feel calm, feel listened to, and so on. So I think the best approach is to give all the information to the teachers and say to the teachers, what do you think will work in your room with this particular cohort of children? And then, just as important as the research coming from academia to schools, is that we then feed back, because actually we're on the front line and we understand what works, what doesn't work. So this is a wonderful opportunity to feed back and say, that was brilliant, or that would work, but it will never be practical in this setting.
Are you able to sort of assess impact?
Yeah, we took some measures from the children, baseline measures of how they feel about their learning before they trained up, before they learned about the brain, and then afterwards. And I was really thrilled to see that their movement towards accepting that their brains are plastic was really strong. So we shifted them over from thinking that they had a set intelligence. Yeah. You were either good at maths or you were bad at maths or whatever, or sports. But now they're much more open to saying, actually, if I keep on trying, then I can change my brain. My brain is plastic, it's moldable. Keep on going and going and going, building those neural connections. I can get better at something. That's been the biggest shift so far.
And whole staff engagement? He talks about the English department, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal across the whole school. Wow. It's been really interesting. I was thinking at very worst, people would sit for a couple of hours or a half a day and listen to me talking about it, or having conversations with each other or reading books, and they might find it interesting. That was the worst case scenario, and the best would be that people took it on board. And the buzz around school has been incredible, and the conversations we have in the staff room about dopamine and uncertain rewards. I think you're going to see a bit of a
We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, aren't we? We're going to hear about the uncertain rewards and dopamine in particular. So, I suppose, in a nutshell, how do you see a year, or you don't see the year unfolding, you see 5 years, 6 years, the life of a student from 9 months old all the way through?
Well, in reception, they start learning about their brains. There's a whole module on brains and what brains are, what they do, and how your emotion affects your learning, and how important it is to feel calm and ready to learn, and how you can help yourself. And so that's the kind of basis. As we move up through the school, it gets more refined to recall, using sense. So we have diffusers in every single classroom.
I've noticed those.
Yeah, and the children learn with...
The lights change colour as well.
They do.
Lovely.
They encode with specific scents. So they might do maths with peppermint.
Oh,
every time they learn, have a math lesson, they have a peppermint smell or a lemon smell.
Proust and his Madeleines, they're going to be reminded that peppermint
do you think?
Isn't really associated with maths. They're going to enjoy that.
But the children love it. They really like it. But perhaps the most surprising bit of research on the diffusers was that the staff really liked it. They said they felt really calm, really relaxed, and it felt like a nice room. And a happy teacher is a happy class.
Absolutely. So how do you see it unfolding after that, though? So then you move into the senior school, and at that point you're talking more about knowledge, memory acquisition.
Yes, knowledge acquisition, memory recall. And our children are going to be leaving school and going to jobs, most of which don't exist. They're going to be living in the era of dataism. So those uniquely human skills will become more and more and more important. And teaching a child how to learn now is so important for their future, because they're going to have to work in multiple careers.
Competing with AI as well.
They'll be key to compete, or using AI. We're already using it here, and the children love it. They're brilliant at it. But you're going to be, because we're living for longer, we're going to be working for longer to pay for those long lives. So the chances are that we're going to be having multiple careers with multiple generations in the same place, and everybody's going to have to keep adapting and changing. The key to success is how quickly you can pivot and learn and change, use that new piece of tech. So to me, knowing how to learn is a really key skill that all children should be leaving school.
The old metacognition stuff. You talked about the fact that these were bought by friends of Kingswood.
Yes.
So governors, parents SLT, everybody is on board. You managed to... It's a remarkable thing that you've managed to achieve.
Well, they bought the diffusers, they bought plants for every classroom, They bought fairy lights for every classroom so that the rooms feel cosy and feel nice.
Do you do, I was going to say, presentations for parents?
Yes,
do parents
we do.
have presentations?
Yeah, I do some in person, and then the latest one we did is a video so that everybody could watch it in their own time. And I get lovely emails every now and then from parents saying they'd like to know a little bit more, or that they're really enjoying hearing about how brains learn from their children. So really, it's the first time I've managed to get all three together in the same place, the children, the teachers and their parents. Because if we're all saying the same messages and everybody understands what everybody else is saying, that's when the magic...
And your management team, I assume, are completely on board as well.
Oh, incredibly supportive, yeah, very supportive.
And what about the future then, the future of neuroscience?
It's getting stronger
Rebecca
and stronger.
And the school, which direction can you see it going?
I think we'll just keep going. We're gaining momentum like a snowball. We're building in more and more and more. The reception curriculum have now built in even more educational neuroscience into what they do. The children themselves refer back to it. They also manage things like their brain breaks. If they're feeling stressed,
they're able to manage their own brain break.
No, they also we have brain break
fantastic.
monitors. They'll say we've had enough. Our brains are full. Can we just do a quick brain break? And it's all, as I say, the onus is on the children. So the teachers respect that and will say, of course, what do you need? We've been sitting a long time, we need a quick movement break, or I just need some time out, or I just need to meditate. I was teaching some year ones the other day and they said, we're very stressed, can we start with a meditation? And then it just brought the level, the energy down to the right place, collected everybody.
So I need to slow down my breathing. I'm going to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. Now, my feet are planted flat on the floor. I'm not twitching them, that might speed my heart rate up, so I'm just slowing my heart rate down. Continuing to breathe nice, slow, deep breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth. And with your eyes closed or half closed, I'm going to get you to picture a bulb. I'm going to get you to picture a bulb that goes in the ground. If you don't really know what one looks like, you can maybe imagine an onion. I want you to picture that bulb, the roots going down and the sprout coming up. And when I get to 1 and 0, I want you to picture a flower blossoming. 7, I can picture something coming up quite high, something green coming out of that bulb now. 1, that flower has blossomed now. 0. You can start moving a bit if you want. Twitching, some people really needed that movement, didn't they? Twitching your fingers, twitching your toes. Who could picture that bulb?
And then off we go.
And off they go.
But the fact that 5-year-olds are now walking into a room and saying, I'm not in the right place for learning, can we have a quick meditation, is evidence to me.
So it's a model that you're feeling pretty confident about. Is it a model that you feel that you could take to other schools in
Absolutely.
the local area? Have you approached anybody? Are you planning on approaching anybody?
My previous career, I worked with 10 schools in very deprived areas. We delivered a bit of theory, a bit of input, and we said to teachers, well, basically the approach was throw it all at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And the things that the teachers are interested by are the things that will work, they'll carry through. It was partly successful, but I was visiting during the year at various points, but I wasn't there every day to keep the momentum, keep the fire burning. So they did work, but perhaps the greatest impact has definitely been here. And at various staff meetings, I can drop in another 20 minutes or a reminder here or an idea there. But perhaps the best bit for me has been getting the feedback from the teachers or watching other teachers doing things. I've learnt just as much from my colleagues here as I've delivered the other way.
Well, as you're part of Learnus, you know about the big project that we're trying to pursue as well. So it does sound like the big project and the ideas behind the big project will be perfectly suited for having you come along and talk to other people that then can take the information out there. Lovely talking to you, Rebecca. I'm fascinated. I really enjoy. I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day. I'm really looking forward to talking to the students about it, and I am going to take a lot of this back to my own school, especially the plants and the diffuser and the CO2 monitor.
Exactly.
Great idea. Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
So this is your starting question, just to get you going. Okay, so don't start straight away, but I'll start you all together. Yeah, and then you spin for another question.
And then you get a cube if you get it right.
Yeah. And then I'll tell you how many points you've got at the end based on the colour of the cubes. Okay? The wheel's going to be here in just a moment.
You were the head of maths? No, you're not head of maths.
No, just maths teacher for year 4, teach across all the other subjects as well. We've been speaking a lot as a staff about bringing in various techniques related to neuroscience, which can stimulate a kind of dopamine response in the children.
The reward
through uncertain rewards. So not knowing where that reward's going gets the energy going in the classroom. What question was it?
Question. It was definitely like 28.
28, 118. Good. Go and get a cube. 2 more minutes. Colours are there. Pardon? 22. Yes, correct. Correct. Not necessarily. Okay, you've got a bonus minute. You've got 1 bonus minute to score another point. I've been focusing a lot on having activities that require them to move around, get blood flow, get them working in partners with each other, so the activities are quite dynamic.
So they were moving over there, which was fantastic, pressing a button, which gave them a random number that was then related to a question.
That's right. So I was trying to randomise as much as possible.
Excellent.
So they didn't know what the question was going to be or how much that question was going to be worth. And stop. Okay. Take a seat. Oh, I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that. Correct.
What do we get?
I'll give you it.
You got them to pick up different coloured bricks, and those different coloured bricks were
a sort of physical representation of what they were winning, if you like. And then I sat them in a circle so they could see what other people were gaining. That was the idea. And I think it worked. They were moving a lot around the room, which was great, and they were answering the questions correctly.
So how do you randomise the reward? You threw something out, a bit of a curveball at the end there, because they were counting them all up.
Yeah.
And then you said if they got number 21 or something.
Yeah, so the colours for each question meant the question was worth a certain amount of points. They didn't know how many points they were worth.
So they didn't know that at the beginning?
They didn't know that at the beginning. That was revealed at the end.
Clever.
So, points. Let's calculate. So, blues are worth 5. You need to keep this recorded on your boards, please. Greens 4, yellows are 3, orange is 2, a white is 1. However, if you answered question 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 or 30, you get a bonus of 10 points. And then I had chosen a few questions that were going to be worth an extra bonus or a deduction.
Again, randomly?
Again, randomly.
Okay,
I just went prime numbers for deductions and multiples of 5 for bonuses. But whether they noticed that or not, I don't think. But
I don't
it wasn't relevant. It didn't matter. So then they arrive at an amount of points at the end of the round, and we stopped there today. So the winning team won the most amount of points. Well done. That's excellent, isn't it? That's good value, isn't it, for each one? So, guys, I really liked how hard you worked to answer all the questions. You listened really carefully to the instructions, and you just grasped exactly what we needed to do in terms of collecting points. You've all collected some points, which is good, which means you got some questions right, which is important. I think you've all recapped division really nicely, and you've shown that you can do it, that's what I need you to be able to do. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. I've already taught division and the basic methods and the like, and so this is more of a fluency-based activity to practice that kind of working use of it, of the skill.
So in here I've considered how lighting, how the scent of the room, the sound of the room, the air quality could be used to enhance the learning, but also I've done a really deep delve into the displays and the colour. Now obviously if you look around, the topic that we're doing at the moment lends itself incredibly well to nice neutral colours because we're doing ancient Egypt, so I've been able to make everything sand-like. But I was able to do that when we were doing Active Planet as well and could choose some neutral colours.
It's like not bright, popping out colours because distracting, and then you lose focus in the lessons.
Do you find it distracting?
If there's bright colours, yes. I'm an old school double.
I've added softness and comfort to the room with cushions and rugs, and moved my desk to the back of the room.
Yeah, that's quite clever.
It's been a really interesting experiment in how comfortable the children feel in approaching me. How about when I moved my desk to the back of the classroom? Did you notice the change? So for you, it gave you that space to be able to come and talk to me privately so that you didn't feel quite so exposed at the front of the classroom. Yeah. And I really wanted to get the sense that I'm amongst them and that I'm learning with them. And I think it means that when I take a very conscious moment to go and sit at my desk, that's the moment that they know they can come and have a quiet and quite private word with me. And if you're at the front of the room, that can be quite an intimidating thing for them.
Very.
So it sort of takes away that fear.
I've been head for 10 years here, and we've seen much development over that period of time, and I'm very proud of where we are at the moment as a school.
What I would like to first of all say is just how pleased I am that after probably about 15, 16 years being part of Learnus, I at last have found a school that has embraced educational neuroscience. Oh. Can you give me a little bit of background as to how you came across this? Was it through Learnus? Was it through?
I would love to. I'm very pleased that you're here, by the way.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see you all. I think it's been a journey for us as a school. So in 2018, 2019, we managed to get a large-scale investment into science and STEM. That was the first part. And the second part was then taking science out of the form teacher role and giving it a standalone identity as a specialist subject. And then we needed an inspirational leader. And Rebecca came along, and she has done an absolutely amazing job at galvanising this.
She is inspiring. She really is
inspiring. Science. Yeah. And then she started her work, and she's managed to get all parts of the school invested in it. That's the children firstly, they're the most important people, and then she's done the same with the staff, the same with the parent body, and we are very proud of where the work has got to at this moment in time.
Well, it must have been very brave of you and the rest of the senior management team to take a topic like neuroscience and think, do you know what, we're going to see whether or not we can embed it. It seems right across the curriculum. I've worked with the drama teacher today, I've met the English teacher today, PSHE teacher today, and everybody seems to have bought into it.
Yeah, we're invested in children, and if children have a better understanding of how they're learning and what they are as learners, and they can take that into their teenage life, then we're doing a great job with our age children.
And have you seen yourself an impact? I presume there's going to be an impact on staff as well as young people.
I think the environments are the thing that I've noticed most around the school. So where staff have embraced an atmosphere and going down to the sense and the boards and trying to get that inner calmness into their learning has been really valuable. And the thing I've really enjoyed is children having a real deep knowledge of how to learn themselves. So our Year 5 learning champions have been magnificent.
Yeah, I've met a few of them. They really are interesting.
In producing their videos and telling us how we can learn best. And in preparation for the assessments of the senior school, the children had various tactics that they were using and utilising themselves to get themselves in the best place possible to do well and succeed. So there's been snippets of it all over the school, but it needs somebody to lead it, and Rebecca's just done such a good job in getting us all to buy in.
And the parents have embraced it, I presume. I mean, you clearly are. Kingswood is a community that must extend out into, out with the parents, and I presume your, I was going to say your trustees.
Yeah, governors.
The governors, yeah.
She's been, I think, because she is so charismatic and knowledgeable, and she passionately believes in this. We've had to do 2 parent evenings because they've both been fully subscribed.
Really?
The ones that missed it wanted to come the next time.
Absolutely.
So there's been a real parent buy-in. In fact, in terms of the impact she's had on science, full stop, the parents have been blown away by the contribution she's made.
And where to next? Kingswood is...
I don't know. This is well, I'm going to be hopefully guided by Rebecca on that, but we would like to keep this relevant. I mean, we've built in growth mindsets over probably 4 or 5 years, but it builds in beautifully to the neuroscience aspect of it as well. So hopefully we'll continue to do our very best for young children becoming the best learners they can be, and arriving at senior school with all those skills in place.
And maybe spreading the word, using the name of Kingswood to see whether or not
we'd love that. We would love to do that.
Stretch it out into the rest of the schools in Bath and beyond.
I think part of the building project here was to take out, part of the John Wesley message was to take out into the community, and then we had COVID, so I think the next chapter will be spreading the word wide and far.
Wonderful, wonderful. And hopefully you will become a member of Learnus as well.
We'd really like that.
We can continue to work more closely with you.
That would be a privilege.
Fantastic. Yeah. Once again, thank you, honestly. It's been an honour, an absolute honour coming here. Lovely to meet you, Emma.
And
can
you too.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And it's one of the reasons it is so lovely to see you is I think you're the first English teacher
that's
that I've
exciting.
Interviewed with regards to neuroscience.
That's very exciting.
So tell us about yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into neuroscience.
Lovely. So I'm Emma. I'm head of English at the senior school, and I suppose I got into it initially because just before I joined the senior school from a different school, I did some training to teach mindfulness to children.
Okay.
So that was the Mindfulness in Schools programme. And so you do quite an intensive week, but quite a bit of that is neuroscience, and it's about learning about neuroplasticity and about how you can rewire the brain to respond rather than react. So obviously it's more of a kind of emotional resilience kind of approach, but it gave me that knowledge
Basics.
and that insight, the basics.
Basics.
So then, I guess fast forward 4 or 5 years, when Rebecca came up to the senior school and gave part of a staff inset, teaching us about some neuroscience and education and how we could actually put that into practice. There were a lot of things that were mentioned that either chimed with what I'd already learnt in that programme or sort of chimed with what I already instinctively knew kind of from my own interests or my own background, my own life. So even things like the kind of effects of aromatherapy. And I found that really exciting because in a sense what I was hearing was kind of validation for a lot of the thoughts that I'd had before about things that might work in the classroom, but in a way I hadn't had the courage to do, because until you sort of hear the science and the research and feel that you can back up your experiment with something.
And you've got some support, I presume.
Yes.
You sort of support
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
Rebecca
So I think we're lucky in the senior school because the senior management team are open to new ideas and they're open to us trying things.
Specifically or predominantly in the senior school?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So I've got quite a big department in the senior school. I manage 8 staff. We've got 6 classrooms that are specifically ours. So we do have quite a lot of control over our environment. So after we'd listened to Rebecca, and I think there was a kind of open kind of option at the end to say, oh, you know, if you want to kind of follow this up. So that was my first action afterwards, was send a quick email. Yes, please come and join us. So Rebecca came up and essentially did a kind of audit of the department with me. And we walked around all the rooms and talked about what was already fine, what could change. And together we made a kind of manageable list of changes that wouldn't feel overwhelming to try and do them all at once.
Is that because you had some teachers that were a little bit wary, sceptical? Or
no, I think they were all on board, but I think because, you know, a teacher's life is a very busy life.
Indeed.
And so when you make changes, there's always some nervousness to, you know, how much work will this be? How many hours this is going to take me to kind of change my classroom or add things in? So we ended up making a quite a specific list of the things that we would try and bring in at the start. And we also, I put together from some of the material that Rebecca had shared with us and some of the things I already had, a PowerPoint, some slides on the neuroscience in the classroom and neuroplasticity, and kind of okayed that with Rebecca before I went for it to make sure all the science was okay. And that was really interesting because I learned some things even from that.
Wonderful.
So things like just having something in capital letters is much harder to process than having things in upper and lowercase. So I learned some really good things. But so we then brought in showing each of our classes these slides. Took, you know, far less than a whole lesson, getting them to talk about it. A lot of them further down the school or in previous schools had encountered the idea of growth mindset. So they understood this idea of how you could do things that might help your focus or affect your learning. And we kind of introduced to them directly what we were going to change, and then they could see when those things were being brought in. So some of the specifics were we brought in diffusers to every classroom, so we could be in control of the kind of the oils in the air, the scent of the classroom. And I'm quite specific about those. So, you know, having spoken to Rebecca, having done my own research, things like, no, let's not have lavender oil because it's relaxing, because actually it drops your level of focus. So unless you want to have a really relaxing
bit more stimulating.
Exactly.
So you've gone lemon. You've gone peppermint.
So lemon, peppermint, rosemary, some lemongrass, just some blends.
Lovely.
But the children really like it, and they really engage with, oh, what is it today? Can they choose? Can they be the one to, fill
Are we
it up and
talking
get it
all the way
working?
up to sixth formers?
Yeah,
Sixth formers
all the way
like
up
it as
to
well.
sixth form.
Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We also added in LED coloured light strips around the classroom wherever we could fit them, sort of above display boards and things, so that you can wash the walls with different colours if and when you want to. So that's worked in terms of calming colours in the classroom, so blues and greens, kind of natural colours. But also, again, the children really engage with it. So
do they choose? Do you
sometimes
choose?
They choose.
Okay.
So sometimes if we're doing something that maybe doesn't require, a very kind of specific element, they'll do things like they'll want it on a kind of fade between all of the colours. Or we did have a moment where with the ones that we've got, they can be sound reactive. Mm-hmm. So there was one occasion where we didn't realise they were on sound reactive, and at a particular dramatic part in the poem, someone made a really loud noise and the walls flooded red.
Perfect.
That was a very, very
absolutely
dramatic
perfect. That's a
moment.
bit of a dopamine moment there.
Really was,
they're going
yes.
to remember that one, aren't
I
they?
think they will forever.
Fantastic.
But also it's about colours in the room.
Yeah.
And I think what I've been reflecting on is going all the way through my career. So I've been in teaching for a really long time already.
Oh, you...
I really have. And so I think from the beginning of teaching, you're always taught, oh, it should be really stimulating bright colours. Yeah. Always put the children's work on the walls. They love to see their work. Lots of really exciting, dynamic things. But obviously, through the neuroscience, you learn that that's really unhelpful. A, it can be just really distracting. B, particularly if you're neurodivergent, having a very cluttered environment can be really detrimental to your learning. So
and
again,
often you didn't put certain people's work on the wall because
exactly.
really what you're doing
and
is...
actually what you realise as a teacher is that it takes a lot of time to replace a display.
It does.
And apart from the first moment they see their work on the wall, it then becomes invisible to them. They don't notice it after that point. So we've been working through all the rooms, trying to change the dynamic, exciting, distracting displays to, again, more natural backing colours, just having sort of single images in displays rather than lots and lots and lots of different words and images. And again, the children are commenting on that and really enjoying that. So that's also been really helpful.
So we need to ask possibly about, as people will ask, have you been able to measure any impact here, or is this just anecdotally walking around going like this?
I mean, I would say it's hard to measure. I don't, as a non-scientist, I think it's quite hard to measure, how much focus has gone up or down, or, you're using different things. But the main thing that I notice, which has been of the most value to me, is that the students really appreciate it. They see the things that have changed. They love the changes. They want to be involved in them. And it's more that sense of them feeling like their learning experience is valued. This is not just about the material I'm delivering. It's not just about, the books that are on the table. It's about me acknowledging that being distracted is not helpful when you're trying to focus on a lesson. Or, I have students who actually, even with the oils that we use, there's certain oils that they don't like, they find, too much. And listening to that and saying, oh, right, no, I'm in this class, I won't use that because I know you don't like it. It's just that individual attention, I think, that they appreciate and enjoy being involved in.
So dare I ask, were there any problems? Have there been any issues that you've had to overcome? Did anything not work? You thought, let's have a go at this, and it just didn't sit well with the department?
I think not so much that didn't work with the department, but I think I thought very naively, right, I'm going to bring in all these changes and they will be done within half a term and we can crack on with everything. But even such a thing as changing the displays in a classroom takes a long time. Yeah. And actually finding that time when the classroom's empty, you can do it, you've got all the resources, is a big deal. So I think it's probably taken us a good year, which sounds crazy, but if you're a teacher, you'll understand, to actually bring all the changes in, make sure that they're working properly. Now we're bringing in lots and lots and lots of greenery and plants as well. Again, it's something that the children really enjoy. They want to recommend plants they've got at home. They want to do little bits of gardening. I kind of occasionally see them sort of stroking them if they're sitting next to the windowsill. Very good. But it's just that overall kind of improvement of their experience within the environment. And just making, with all these things, it's the same with mindfulness, making them just aware of this is how your brain works, this is why we're making these changes. There are other changes that you could make yourself that might help minimise your distraction and maximise your focus.
Brain breaks? Did brain breaks work?
Brain breaks were an interesting one. So we started off really enthusiastically. We had a really good bank of resources of all different types of brain break. And I suppose I would say that, as with all things, some teachers are much better at remembering and doing it. I would absolutely put myself in the camp of being rubbish at remembering. So often putting a child in charge of it and or just saying at the start of the lesson, right, somebody remind me halfway through, we need to do this, is often the most effective way. More easy to do it with younger students, harder with older. The older ones love it. So I went through a whole period pre-Christmas with my year 11s where it was request a song, and halfway through we'd have a song, and they absolutely loved it. But as you get particularly closer and closer to exams and further up the school and the senior school, your time becomes ridiculously precious. And although you'd love to be able to, you know that it would be good to have a break, you know it would be good to stop, you've got to get through that poem, or you've got to get through that essay, and there isn't that moment of opportunity. So I think we know that it works, we know that it's good. Certainly I know with particular students, so we have quite a number of neurodiverse students who need to have movement breaks or need to leave the classroom and have a kind of quiet moment and come back. So obviously those we're very aware of and we honour, but having a general class brain break is harder to facilitate sometimes.
So the organisation Learnus that I'm working for, so to speak, at the moment, it is attempting to connect with teachers.
Yes.
And taking the neuroscience and the academic side of things and trying to make it work in the classroom. You would promote that as... I would
100% promote that. I think you've got to be sensible and see what, not rush things. You've got to make sure that you're, changing a couple of things at a time, not overwhelming your staff, perhaps not overwhelming the children as well with too many changes. But I would highly recommend just exploring, trying some new things, just to help the children work out what works for them, actually, because some of it then, of course, they can take home. If they can put some more plants in their room, they can change their notice board, and create their own focused environment based on what you're doing with them in the classroom.
Specifically, obviously we're here to talk about neuroscience. You deal with the reception young people, so we're talking what ages?
So they're 4 and turning 5.
And Rebecca's spoken quite a lot about what happens in the prep school and the pre-prep. Are you able to address a little bit about some of the things that you've managed to do from Rebecca's talks, CPD programs on neuroscience? Is there anything that you have specifically introduced to reception?
Yeah, so we've really focused on our environment to start off with. So we're making sure that all our displays are very neutral, very calming. We have our CO2 monitors, which we make sure that we've got on as soon as they beep. We're opening all the windows, and what's great is the children have actually understood now why they beep and why it's important that we open the windows and let the fresh air in. We always have brain breaks, and actually with the younger children it's very obvious when they need to have that rest and a switch to a new activity and then come back to their learning.
So have you been able to embed that in sort of curriculum preparation?
Definitely. So we find that it comes very naturally to us that we'll start a lesson and then we can see that the children are a little bit jiggly, not focused. So we stop, we'll do a brain break, and we have a few that we like to do, and the children get really excited about doing them. And then the children are very good at then coming back and settling into learning again. And we feel that we get much more from the children after that brain break, which is really helpful.
Are you explaining to the children why you're doing this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. And you feel that they have taken it on board?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
I think in any area of learning, it's really important to explain to the children why they're doing something. We even explain to the children why we're doing phonics. And, at the beginning of the lesson, the first thing is, why do we do phonics? Why do we do maths? Just so that the children really understand why we're asking them to do what they do. So we talk to them about the brain breaks. We talk to them about the CO2 monitor. We talk to them about, and we do this thing with our irregular words. So obviously words like the and I are really difficult for the children to remember when they're reading. So we've got a picture of the children holding the word and the personal involvement of that child holding that red word, and then we display them on the board, which has really helped it stick into their memory.
Fantastic.
So that's something that we found has worked.
And have you spoken to them about the brain?
Yes. So
it's very complicated.
It is. Even for us, it's quite complicated. Yes, and we've done it in a very child-appropriate way, and we hope that by introducing it and just getting them to start to think about the brain, being aware of it simply at this age will then sort of help them as they go through the school and learn more of the technical side.
And some of the vocabulary, I presume, is cuts right across the whole of the prep school, I presume.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be very comfortable with neuroplasticity, and they're talking about amygdalas and neurons.
I feel like the children are probably better than the staff at certain points in the school.
And are you looking forward to taking it further?
Yeah.
You're staying in reception, I'm assuming. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a learning process for me. I've never worked in a school where it's really been so central.
Yeah, it's absolutely embedded in.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Kingswood, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do remember the first time when I first started on the inset day, and Rebecca did this lecture to the whole of the foundation, and I'm sitting there as a new member of staff thinking, wow, crikey, like this is hard. But actually, once she explained it and broke it down into how this is going to be, how this can change how you are in the classroom with the children, it sort of simplified it for me, and
made sense.
Yeah,
made sense. So is there anything that we, in a sense, have missed? We've covered an awful lot of things, we've met an awful lot of people. It's been absolutely fantastic.
We put together about 20 things that teachers could use, and I put each one on a card, like this.
Which all members of staff have?
All members of staff have, yeah. There's a digital version and a print version. And each one has a topic, so brain plasticity. And importantly, first of all, it tells the teachers the actual facts, the research. We have to embed absolutely everything in research. And then I give teachers an idea of what I could try. So practical tips. So the teachers don't have to go away, do the reading and then think about it. Teachers have no time. So this is a shortcut to, okay, what could I try? And then on the other side,
Go for it now.
We then say, okay, so if it's working, what would I see? How do I know it's working? And this is the bit that's very open here. So I put a couple of ideas on, and then staff tell me, they'll come back and say, actually, I saw this happening or this changing. So what Emma was saying earlier on about the children appreciate being thought about, I would definitely be adding that on to the next print copy of these.
And you've got space, they can add stuff?
Absolutely, there's a note space, yes. They can add to it.
So which other ones are you particularly interested in? I personally quite like the novelty, curiosity element of a couple of the cards here. What do you mean by novelty, curiosity? How does that sort of fit in with?
Well, that's a little bit like what Johnny, the chap earlier on, was talking about, that if a child comes into a room and their amygdala is overstimulated, or as Isla May said, hypermetabolic, they're stressed, they're worried, they're distracted thinking about other problems, then learning's quite difficult. If they're at the other end and they're not stimulated, they're bored, then learning doesn't happen either. They drift off and you lose their focus. So one of a teacher's greatest challenges is to get that child's attention and focus on the salient learning point. So we can do that in a number of ways. We can get that balance, the Goldilocks balance, just right by making something novel, anything new. So our brains haven't changed since Stone Age times. Our brains are still perfectly adapted for that environment, not one where the children are sat day after day doing the same thing, sitting at a desk, sitting on a chair, same room, same environment, same routine. We're designed to spot new things. It's a survival advantage if you can do that. So how can we hack that or leverage that knowledge and put it into a modern Western classroom? Using novelty, so doing something different. It could be as simple as opening the door and putting the children's desks in a different situation, different position. When I'm teaching light, the children come into a completely blacked out room using a torch. It might be getting a child to deliver part of the lesson. It might be using a different piece of music, a funny voice. Humour can be novel. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian, but you can make silly references. You can get the children to respond in silly accents.
Draw their attention in.
Exactly. So anything new, you can't help but pay attention to it. And the same with curiosity. If a child is curious about something, then it's very difficult to tune out. So, for an example, we were doing some onion experiments and the children were wondering just last week what an onion actually was. And we said it's just a bulb. So we put them in water. We've compared a Waitrose onion to a Spa onion and we've just let it grow. So the children are really curious and they've now become fascinated by bulb propagation because it's led by them. They are curious about it.
And they have now been persuaded that it is a bulb and it's not just teacher telling them it's a bulb.
Exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. And the last one that I was interested in is what do you do about emotion? Because obviously we're dealing with teenagers, adolescents. emotions play quite an important role in their lives.
I would say that the teacher's most important role of any lesson is to set the emotional climate. So again, if a child's worried, distressed, anxious, they're going to find learning a little bit harder. And our brain actually prioritises emotion and socialisation above learning. So if those two things aren't in stasis, they aren't settled, then a child's never going to learn. Learning is a non-essential brain process, whereas emotion and socialising are. So the best thing you can do is just check in with the children. Are you okay? Are you a bit worried? Do you need anything? And the children at this school now know how to reach out and ask for help. And they'll tell you what they want. So very often they might say, I just need 5 minutes. I need a quick, I think one of the chaps earlier on said, I like a quick meditation. They might want to have the tortoise out and while they're working because we have to be calm and quiet for him. Acknowledging the child's emotion and then moving on is the quickest way I found to settle them. And the research shows as well that if we acknowledge that emotion comes with a child, they're not a blank, empty pot that you can just put learning credits into. They have to be part of the process. And part of that is teaching them how to get their brains in the right emotional space.
And as part of the, I suppose our duty or obligation, I suppose, as teachers, is we do need to figure out whether or not it is having some sort of impact. I mean, the academics are telling us that it has impact. Can you talk a little bit about how you are trying to measure, or your intentions about measuring impact, whether or not you've done anything to date, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, without data, you're just an opinion. So I've tried right from the start to encourage staff to take baseline measures. So it might be how many times you ask people to focus, or how many times you have to get their attention. It might be on noise levels in the classroom, or it might be in how the children themselves describe their learning. But you've got to take some kind of baseline, and then you do your intervention, and then you measure again. So we have got some data from school, and I'm delighted to say that the children now on multiple choices have shown, multiple choice questionnaires at various points, have shown a big shift towards understanding neuroplasticity. And research shows that if you just do nothing else but just tell a child how their brain is plastic, that their brain will change every single time they learn something new, that alone boosts their grades. The research tells us that. So that was a no-brainer to bring that in. And I'm delighted to say that they are now reporting, absolutely, I know my brain is plastic and it will change every single time I learn something new. We also interviewed children and teachers talking about brain breaks. 100% of the staff said they were effective. The clutter on the walls, that was all done on a survey from children and staff. The clutter was a big one. Scent diffusers, everybody loves.
I'm not surprised.
But often for reasons that the research doesn't say.
Yeah.
So yes, we know in the laboratory that if you inhale rosemary, then your recall on a subsequent test is much better. There's a chemical 1,8-cineol inside rosemary, which helps to raise levels of acetylcholine in the brain, which is a neurotransmitter. Yeah, so we know that rosemary helps, but what do our children say? Their measures are less on recall. It's much harder for us to measure that, because you can't quite tell whether it's just the change in cohort, the change in teacher, whatever. But we can say 100% of teachers and children really enjoy learning with rosemary in the room. So in a way, does the reason why matter? We know they like it, we know it works. And importantly, they feel that we care about them.
And the assessing the impact is obviously something that's now going to be ongoing.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't want to ask, are you going to write this up? It'd be really interesting.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
It'd be really interesting.
And it was one thing that the senior management were very keen on. We have to evidence the impact. We can't just come in there. And I mean, I think as well, perhaps the best feedback we can have is from the children themselves. And I'm delighted that you took the time to talk to the children.
Well, they definitely felt there was an impact, and they were absolutely engaged and very knowledgeable. So how does it make you feel as a member of the Learnus Council?
I'm very excited, very satisfied as well. For the last decade or so, I've been having conversations with Caroline and the Learnus team about getting academics into schools and seeing exactly how we can do it, and for schools to share that information back to the academic community. I mean, teachers are the experts of teaching children to learn. Academics are the experts at looking inside brains, and let's pull it all together and get this wonderful bi-directional flow of information between the two.
Couldn't agree more, couldn't agree more. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.